Tonight, I'll share what happened to Chloe Miller. She thought no one could ever diminish the dream she built until her own family sued her for it. She never imagined success could feel like a crime. Chloe, who was only 24, had finally closed on her first house. It was the dream she had built from scratch. 2 jobs, no vacations, and years of scraping by. When she planned a family barbecue that weekend, she expected pride. She expected a moment of healing. Instead, her mother, Susan, pointed at her with a face red with rage and screamed a betrayal in front of everyone. "You stole your brother's future." The joy, the laughter, the smell of grilled chicken, it all froze. And a week later, a man in a gray suit stood on Chloe's new porch, serving her with court papers. Her parents and her brother were suing her for ruining Jason's chances. That was the moment something inside Chloe snapped. If they wanted to destroy her, she decided they'd regret ever stepping into a courtroom. I don't think I've ever heard of a more self-made person than Chloe Miller. Since she was 16, she lived on her own terms. While other teenagers were begging for keys or an allowance, Chloe was begging for extra shifts at the diner downtown. She worked mornings at a bookstore and nights serving tables just to save enough to rent a tiny one-room apartment. Her parents, Susan and Robert Miller, always justified their indifference with the same line. "We're saving for your brother, Jason. He has potential." Jason, 2 years younger, was the golden child. Lazy, spoiled, and arrogant, he failed classes, crashed cars, and burned through every dollar they gave him. But to them, Jason was the future. Chloe was just the responsible backup. She didn't complain. She learned early that no one was coming to save her. By 18, she was taking online business classes. By 20, she was an assistant at a real estate firm by day and waiting tables by night. She skipped parties, wore thrift store clothes, and lived on ramen, saving every single cent. At 24, she signed the papers to her very first house. It wasn't a mansion, but it had white fences, a small garden, and a porch swing she built herself. It was hers. So, when she invited her family over to celebrate, she truly hoped for a turning point. Maybe they'd finally see she'd made it and be proud. Maybe Jason would be inspired. She was wrong. The barbecue started fine. Her dad, Robert, nodded awkwardly, sipping a beer. Susan faked smiles. Jason arrived 2 hours late in a borrowed BMW, acting like he owned the place. "Wow, Chloe," he smirked. "You really lucked out. Bet you couldn't do this without Mom and Dad's help, huh?" Chloe smiled politely and offered a simple truth. "No luck, just hard work." He just rolled his eyes. Then Susan stood up, clinking her glass for a toast. What followed was a stunning display of entitlement. She announced how impressive it was that Chloe bought a house, but then pivoted. "She's done so well while her brother has been struggling after losing his college funding because we had to help her instead." Chloe froze. The yard went silent. "What?" she asked quietly. Her mother looked at her with venom. "Don't act innocent. We told Jason we'd help him start his business, but that money's gone now. You had to have gotten some of it." Chloe's voice shook as she pointed out the truth. She hadn't taken a dime. They hadn't even paid for her prom dress. "I've worked every day since I was 16. Robert slammed his beer can on the table. "You've always been ungrateful. Jason should have had this kind of success. But you," he jabbed a finger at her, "you took everything from him. You're selfish." Selfish for working 2 jobs? For not depending on them? Before she could finish the thought, Susan shouted so loudly the neighbors looked over the fence. "You stole your brother's future!" That broke something inside Chloe. She told every single one of them to leave. A week later, the man in the gray suit arrived. Chloe was being sued for emotional distress and financial damages by her entire family. She laughed out loud. It wasn't funny. It was pure, unbelievable delusion. As she read the documents claiming she manipulated them into denying Jason financial support, Her shock turned to fury. If they wanted war, they would get it. Chloe didn't have money for a fancy lawyer, but she had intelligence, meticulous records, and a memory like steel. She pulled every email, receipt, and tax record she'd kept since she was 16. Every message from her parents where they ignored her pleas for help, telling her they were supporting Jason. She found Jason's social media posts, videos of him partying in Cancun, champagne in hand, captioned, "Thanks Mom and Dad for the best birthday ever," during his so-called struggling period. She gathered texts, bank statements, even witnesses from her workplaces who could confirm she'd supported herself since high school. She hired a young, hungry lawyer named Grace Miller who loved underdog cases. "You want to fight this?" Grace smirked. "Because this is going to be fun." "Oh, I'm not just fighting it," Chloe told her. "I'm going to make them wish they'd never met a courthouse." The hearing day came fast. Her parents arrived dressed like saints, Susan in pearls, Robert in a suit, and Jason attempting to look humble. The judge, a sharp woman named Judge Hernandez, read the claim aloud. "You're suing your daughter for emotional distress and financial interference?" "Yes, Your Honor," Susan tearfully replied. "She took advantage of us, and now our son's future is destroyed." "Did she borrow money from you?" The judge frowned. "No," Susan admitted, "but she manipulated us emotionally. She made us feel guilty for helping our son." When it was Chloe's turn, Grace stood tall. "Your Honor, my client has been financially independent since the age of 16. We have extensive documentation, tax records, employment letters, lease agreements, and over 100 pay stubs. She's never received financial support from her parents, ever." The judge raised a brow. "Is that true, Mrs. Miller?" Susan's face twisted. "Well, we intended to help her at some point." "Intended?" Grace repeated, smiling. "But didn't." Then she dropped the real bombshell. "Your Honor, while the plaintiffs claim financial hardship due to helping their daughter, here are the bank statements showing they transferred $22,000 to their son, Jason, over the past 2 years, funds he used for luxury vacations and gambling." The courtroom gasped. Jason's face went pale. "That was for business research," he stammered. Grace simply showed another photo. Jason on a yacht in Monaco, surrounded by models. Even the judge couldn't hide a smirk. Susan tried to object, but it was too late. The judge leaned forward. "So, to clarify, you're suing your daughter for being successful while financially supporting your son's bad habits?" Silence. The judge shook her head. "Case dismissed. And, Miss Miller, you're entitled to countersue for defamation and harassment if you wish." Chloe's parents' jaws dropped. Chloe stood up slowly, looked directly at them, and smiled for the first time in months. "Oh, don't worry, Your Honor. I fully intend to." Word spread fast in their small town. Everyone knew the Millers, respectable, church-going, the perfect family. Now, they were the couple who sued their self-made daughter and got humiliated in court. Their friends stopped visiting. Their business partners pulled out. Even Jason's girlfriend dumped him. Chloe filed her counter-lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress. Grace took it pro bono, just for the satisfaction. A month later, the judge ruled in Chloe's favor. They owed her $50,000 in damages. When the ruling was announced, Susan burst into tears. Robert stared at Chloe like she was a stranger. Jason just slumped in his chair, utterly defeated. Chloe didn't take the money. She told the judge she wanted it donated to a scholarship fund for underprivileged girls working part-time jobs, because unlike her family, she wanted her victory to mean something. Months passed. Her house became more than just a home. It became a symbol of freedom. She rebuilt her peace, planted flowers, and adopted a stray cat she named Justice. One evening, as she was painting her porch, she heard a familiar voice. It was Jason. He looked tired, humbled. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Mom and Dad went too far. I shouldn't have gone along with it." Chloe studied his face. "You let them ruin me, Jason. Why now?" He sighed. because I realized something. They made me weak. You made yourself strong. I wish I'd done what you did." For the first time, Chloe saw sincerity in her brother's eyes. She didn't forgive him fully, but she nodded. "Then learn from it. Don't let them control your life anymore." He nodded and left. That night, as the sun set behind her white picket fence, Chloe sat on the porch swing she had built. She thought about the girl she was at 16, tired, broke, invisible. And she smiled, because in the end, she didn't need revenge to destroy them. All she had to do was succeed, and that was the sweetest victory of all.